Hey there, I'm Jada L. Roberts, author of Sharing the Mountain with Bigfoot. Welcome to my channel, where I share authentic stories, personal experiences, and chilling tales from the depths of the woods. If you enjoy the videos, please like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow. And if you love reading Bigfoot stories, be sure to check out my books on Amazon.
I was 23 when I took a seasonal job with the Forest Service in Northern California, part of a 12-person trail crew working deep in the wilderness. We were all young, tough, and eager for adventure, living in tents, working sunup to sundown, and collapsing around the campfire at night. That summer should have been just another season of hard labor and camaraderie. Instead, it became the summer we learned that something else was out there in those woods. Something ancient and territorial that didn't like noise. At first, everything was peaceful. Our base camp was set up in a high meadow, miles from the nearest road. No cell service, no tourists, just the whisper of wind through the pines and the occasional cry of a hawk overhead. The silence was the first thing I noticed. No birdsong, no squirrels chattering. Just an eerie stillness that settled over the trees, like a held breath. Jake, one of the crew members who'd grown up in the backwoods of Montana, said it was bear country. Grizzlies don't like noise, he told us, sniffing the air like he could smell them. But the way he scanned the tree line made me think he wasn't just talking about bears. For the first week, we worked without incident, clearing deadfall and repairing washed-out trails. Nights were spent eating foil-wrapped meals and passing around a flask of cheap whiskey, too exhausted to do much more than stare into the fire. It was peaceful. Then the weekenders arrived. They rolled in on a Friday afternoon. A convoy of lifted trucks, towing gleaming RVs, stereos already thumping. Within an hour, their generators were roaring. Their kids were tearing through the undergrowth on ATVs, and the smell of charred meat and weed hung thick over the campground. By midnight, their karaoke machine was still blasting, and the bass vibrated through the ground like a second heartbeat. I went to Hank, the campground host, a grizzled old-timer who lived in a dented airstream, and reminded him that quiet hours started at 10. He spat tobacco juice into the dirt and said, "Ain't my job to police 'em," jerking a thumb at the faded sticker on his trailer. Volunteer host, no authority. By Sunday morning, our crew was hollow-eyed with exhaustion. The campers had left behind a war zone of broken bottles and scorched earth, but at least they were gone. Then the next group arrived. This batch was worse. A dozen frat brothers from UC Berkeley celebrating a bachelor party. They brought fireworks, a keg, and a sound system that shook the ground. That night, as their drum set pounded out a rhythm that echoed through the valley, Jake snapped. "That's it," he said, standing up, his face lit red by their bonfire. "I'm giving them a taste of their own medicine." His plan was simple. Sneak into the woods behind their sight and unleash every predator call he knew. Cougar screams, wolf howls, even the eerie wail of a dying rabbit. The first scream worked like a charm. The music cut off. A drunk voice yelled, "What was that?" Jake grinned at me in the dark and did it again. Then something answered. Not an echo. A deeper, wetter sound, like a throat full of rocks. The trees shook. "Run," Jake whispered. We barely made it back to camp before the screaming started. It took 3 nights for the creature to show itself fully. First came the rocks, fist-sized stones hurled from the darkness, always landing just shy of our tents. Then the footprints, massive, 5-toed impressions pressed deep into mud. No human could reach without leaving tracks of their own. On the 4th night, Diaz saw it. Eyes. he panted, bursting into my tent at 3 a.m. Like huge headlights in the trees, we huddled around the fire until dawn, taking turns keeping watch. That's when we noticed the gifts. A dead fox lay neatly by the latrine, its neck snapped clean. A bundle of wildflowers tied with a vine. It's not trying to scare us, Jake realized. It's trying to communicate. The bachelor party last night was the worst. They'd brought a drum set. The first drum beat shook the valley. The second shook the trees. The third never finished. Something roared. A sound that turned my bones to jelly. Then came the crashes. RVs rocking on their axles, glass shattering, men shrieking. We watched from a distance, flashlights off. The creature moved like smoke. Here 1 second, gone the next. Only glimpses, a shoulder wider than a barrel, arms that brushed the ground, eyes that flashed amber in the firelight. By sunrise, the campers were gone. Their tents stood intact, but every generator, speaker, and ATV had been reduced to scrap. Hank's trailer was untouched. But when we knocked, we found his radio still on, his coffee still warm, and his boots still by the door. The Forest Service wrote it off as a bear attack. They always do. We finished our season in silence, jumping at every snapped twig. Sometimes, at night, we'd hear it moving just beyond the firelight. A rustle, a sigh, the crack of a branch, under impossible weight. Jake left first. Said he was driving back to Montana. Last I heard, he won't go camping anymore. As for me, I still work the trails, but I never camp without earplugs now. And if I hear music in the distance, I pack up and leave. Because the Watcher hates noise, but it loves quiet. The silence after the attack was heavier than before, like the forest itself was holding its breath. We packed up our gear with trembling hands, no one daring to speak above a whisper. Even the usual morning bird song was absent, as if every living thing knew better than to break the uneasy peace. For the rest of our season, we worked like ghosts, moving through the trees. No more singing on the trail. No more late-night stories around the fire. We communicated in hand signals and nods, our camp reduced to the barest necessary sounds. The scrape of a spoon against a pot, the quiet rustle of sleeping bags. The creature never showed itself again, but we all felt its presence. Supplies would go missing and reappear in strange places. One morning, we found our coffee cans neatly stacked in a pyramid outside the mess tent. Another time, someone's missing boot was found dangling from a branch 20 feet up a pine tree. The worst was the night we heard the knocking. 3 sharp raps against a tree trunk, repeated at precise intervals, moving slowly around our camp perimeter. I lay frozen in my tent, sweat cooling on my skin despite the chill night air. The knocking stopped just outside my tent flap. Then came the breathing. Deep, wet gusts that made the nylon wall tremble. I squeezed my eyes shut and prayed to whatever gods might be listening. When I finally found the courage to look, dawn was breaking, and all that remained were perfect handprints pressed into the mud, each finger twice as long as a man's planned. When our rotation ended, we left faster than we'd ever packed up before. No one suggested staying an extra night, even though we'd normally celebrate the end of a season with a few beers. The trucks roared to life, and we didn't look back as we bounced down the rutted forest road. But just as we reached the highway, something made me glance in the side mirror. Far back in the trees, something tall and dark stood perfectly still, watching us go. I didn't tell the others. Some things are better left unseen. Now, years later, I still wake sometimes in the dead of night, convinced I hear 3 sharp knocks at my window. My wife says it's just the branches tapping in the wind, but I know better. I keep my camping gear locked in the basement these days. The smell of pine makes my hands shake, And whenever I drive past a forest, no matter how bright the day, I roll up my windows and turn the radio off, just in case. Because once you've been chosen by the Watcher, it never really lets you go. It's out there still, waiting in the quiet places, listening for those who dare to disturb its woods.